I love that whenever we go live, there is always a siren going.
I live on a crossroad between three hospitals.
And general Nazi parades as well. Hello, everybody.
Yeah, I wasn't making that up.
No, I know. That's what makes me giggle. Hello, everyone. Welcome to F1 Failcast. We're your fortnightly F1 shenanigans, news, views, and abuse. Courtesy of myself, Mr. Simon Bolkenberg, and alongside me, our taco friend extraordinaire as well, Mr. Esteban. How are you doing, sir?
Bono Estende. I'm pleased to be here. It's been a miserable Saturday. It's been very freaking cold. We got a bit of snow here this morning.
Oh no!
So I've cranked my heating up to 3 out of 5. So we're getting serious now.
Ooh.
And I've got my Red Bull cranberry. And my aim for this week is to not have a massive accident because I've been doing that a lot lately. I've become the Roman Grosjean of the household.
You have, and it's all. We're blaming the brakes, obviously. Damn you, carbon industries.
Yeah, obviously it's the brakes. But I got off with it last week because you got that puncture,
Yes.
which I have to say it was beautiful. That was pure gold Failcast.
It was
Amazing.
It's the thing. It's legends.
Fighting so hard for a single point and losing with a surprise puncture at the last lap. That is a classic Failcast.
Warms my heart.
So we still have Bottas as the arsehole of the arseholes. But we were talking before we went live that neither of us is particularly confident with this track.
No, and I think it's a mixture of it's fast with lots and lots of chicanes that do like to penalise you for time penalties, but also our dreaded worry, the AI.
Yeah, I'm very concerned actually about particularly going into turn 1 and 2 off the line, but also you're right, like it's funny because you feel like you should ride the curbs, and we had this discussion at Belgium because it's got the same feel. But you go anywhere near those curbs and you break traction and you lose so much. And what I noticed actually testing before the episode, if you run mediums, and this only happens on the medium tyre, if you ride the curbs, particularly in the fast corners, the car will kick in towards the inside barrier.
Yeah.
But if you're on super softs in particular, it holds. So yeah, let's try not to be caught out by that.
He says, prophesizing exactly what will be happening later on.
Exactly what will happen. It's getting embarrassing now, even for me.
It is, prophesizing not only what happens in Formula One, but just generally how our races will finish.
Or not finish. But.
Yeah.
Before we get on to F1 news, I thought I'd give you some news on my uninsured Sauber shirt.
Yeah. Sauber update.
Yeah. Hasn't arrived.
No.
It hasn't arrived.
When did it get dispatched?
30th of January. Today is the 10th of February. It's supposed to take, they said, within 8 working days it will be with me.
Slim chance of Monday.
I'm taking balance. Yeah, so I'm going to hold on for Monday. But I've got a feeling that it's just not coming, and because it's not insured, I've just lost €70. So,
oh my god!
Classic work there, Sauber shop.
I bet. Yeah. I wonder if they even bothered to print it to begin with. Oh no, it's raining.
Don't exist. Oh twat!
Oh, it's dry for the race though.
Yeah, but this isn't going to end well in quali, is it?
No, this is going to be horrific in quali, but it will be. It's dry
because
for the race.
Because I have a really low downforce setup for obvious reasons, and I've added a little bit to it because the chassis is worse on this car than the one I developed it for. But I'm not feeling good about this. All right, let's go out for the inevitable accident, and we can begin the episode.
Yeah.
Not as dry in the world of news this week. We've actually got quite a bit more to talk about. And
yes,
God's be praised. This is the last episode we have to do before the car launches and we begin the preseason proper. So
Yeah.
the news drought should be about to finish.
Looking forward to that. And I guess actually, before we dive onto F1 news, just because, I don't know, I start to get withdrawal symptoms in the off season. IndyCar was live streaming on YouTube their test sessions, and that was just quite interesting to see cars going around a track. So I just sat there and watched it for a while. And yeah, it's nice to hear people basically saying Max Chilton is amazing. And it was meant full-on praise. Yeah, not for lols. So, yeah, delighted.
Also, Formula E is running.
Yes.
Something we should also mention.
Yes.
And the level of competition in Formula E is still brilliant. It really is.
I've not seen the latest race yet, though.
Oh, well, then I will not ruin it for you, but it's worth a watch.
Okay.
Anyway, diving straight in, why don't we begin, because we've got a lot of stuff connected to McLaren, so we'll probably all bunch that together, and we'll start with the team we are driving for currently, which is Haas. One, Mr. Romain Grosjean, who, as we know, is great for a soundbite. He was speaking to the press this week, namely Autosport, and he thinks that one of the key weaknesses at the team at the moment is that they have been wasting a lot of time on upgrades that don't work. Quelle fucking surprise, Mr. Grosjean. We're banging the drum again and again, but if you don't build your own car, how can you do anything? How can you do anything?
Yeah. No, it's not a magic morsel that. Well, I suppose a moment on the lips, 3 months in the aerodynamic hips, for an idea, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think to be fair, because they do design their own car, even if they don't build it, and they do design their upgrades. I think a lot of it as well comes from the pieces they get from Ferrari, because it doesn't matter how much work you do for yourself if there are so many components that come from elsewhere and are optimized for another car. You're always going to be handicapped by having to try to work around someone else's standards.
Yeah, and I wonder. I'm assuming that the parts that they get from Ferrari, this is an open question. I don't expect anyone to know the answer. That they are kind of like all from the same version of the Ferrari, if that makes sense. So they're not like got an Australian turning vane or something like that matched with like a mega upgraded version of something else. So they're having to mishmash bits of pre and past Ferraris all together. They actually like get a kit that goes, right, that's all version 1, so that it should all work. I don't know.
Well, I don't actually know what their policies are regarding upgrades, because like obviously the chassis and the aero components are all Haas designed, Dallara built. But Ferrari provide the running gear, and that includes engine, gearbox, and I believe it includes the suspension.
Oh, okay.
I could be wrong. I'm willing to be corrected there, but I believe it includes the suspension.
Interesting.
Now, given how all that fits together to the central tub, you're probably quite limited in your options, right? And then the question comes, if they are getting upgrades, if they do receive upgrades when Ferrari make changes to suspension, for example, year on year, or if there's some specification update on a piece of the car for which they're not responsible for the manufacture, it can have a knock-on effect on so many other components. Then you're left with the question, well, do we want to run an older version of something because we know how it works, or do we want to take the newer version and hopefully gain the advantage that's built into it?
Yeah.
And I think that's probably a very difficult thing for them to call. So I know I mock them all the time and I'm always quite critical of them, but it's not that I don't sympathise and understand the problems that they face, right? Because there's advantages and disadvantages to all possible combinations of choice they could make.
Ooh, hello.
Top by 0.002.
Ooh, nice, nice, nice,
So
nice.
hardly dominating. Oh, I'm just gonna cut the corner. Fuck it.
Jeff said light rain in 10 minutes, but this is already light rain, so I'm assuming that things will get slightly faster towards the end.
Yeah, I'm coming in now to change my tyres because I've had 2 laps invalidated by having to cut the corner at that first chicane. I need to brake a lot earlier than I am. So yeah, I mean, I think also the point he's making there is that he probably knows they're in for a difficult season, and we speculated they're in for a difficult season.
Yeah, yeah. They're one of the few teams that I kind of just think I can't see how you can go forward.
No, exactly. And you know, I think the only team, and it's one that's going to feature very heavily, the only one that's in for any sort of real drastic change is going to be Renault, and you could probably argue Sauber. Sorry, not Renault, McLaren.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a strange pre-season build-up because we're not expecting any of the cars to look drastically different. I did read a piece that was suggesting the T-Wings may return this year. Which, given that they're no longer getting rid of the shark fins, I'm a little concerned about how that might actually look. Because you've already got the coat hangers on the back.
Yeah.
If you're going to have a shark fin with coat hangers, a halo, and a T-wing, I think we're getting into very, very dodgy territory.
Might as well just call it Lady Gaga F1, really. Formula Gaga, there we go.
Yeah, segueing nicely into the halo, obviously an item that is very divisive amongst F1 fans the world over. You posted or reposted that excellent photo that was shared by, who is it running in F2? We posted
George Russell.
That's the one. And I have also seen someone has modded Halos into F1 2017 for PC. And posted some videos of them running around with it. And as we feared, it does seem like it's not as bad as you might imagine, but it is still akin to racing in a pair of Kanye West glasses. And as someone who drives in cockpit view, I'm not a huge fan of what I'm seeing thus far.
No, and actually that's a good point because I'm assuming like that because I drive from airbox mode, that wouldn't actually have a view at all because I just have a ginormous bar going across if they actually implement it. So, I'll have to have a look for those videos because that would intrigue me no end.
I mean, part of me thinks it's okay because I got used to, I believe it was 2014 when they started putting those boxy aerial receivers on the top of the nose, right? And eventually I got used to it. I didn't like it at first because it obscured the apex of the corner, but then I started to try and view it as like a machine gun sight or something. So I just used it to aim. I aimed with the... oh, wow.
That's exactly what I did.
You cannot put a cigarette paper between us.
No, I'm sniffing around your heart.
Yes. Interestingly as well, Stoffel Van Dorn is fastest in Sector 2. You are fastest in Sector 1. Sebastian Vettel is fastest in Sector 3, but I have the fastest lap.
Amazing.
But yeah, currently the Stoff is fastest in Sector 2.
Loving that.
Go on, my son.
Stoffel the waffle.
Is it time for me to go out again? Do I go on board with you, me old pal?
I'm coming in.
It's a good chance for me to get some pictures of you.
Oh, okay.
That was a nice line.
I can go round again. Oh, that's less nice.
Oh, but you kept it. Like, honestly, if that had been me, that'd be out of the race. Your wing doesn't even look badly damaged.
I've got a yellow. a yellow wing. So yeah, we'll dive in. My thanks.
Okay, well then I will go out then. Keep the action going. Let's see if I can get out before you block me in.
Cock block.
Don't fence me in. Moving further on then.
Oh no! Before we do move on with the
Please.
just because it's popped into my head. Sorry, it's only because I was watching the IndyCar test yesterday. I'd completely forgotten they're going to bring in the shield that the Red Bull put on.
Yes, they have brought in the aero shield, which surprised me actually because I would have thought if there was a way to stop it making drivers feel sick, Formula One would have been the one to find a way to do it.
Yeah. I guess they only need to work out for it for one direction to the left. I guess I don't know. Yeah. So I'm genuinely intrigued to see how these two different versions of things will go on because now that Formula E has got the halo in as well, and there is a clear distinction between America doing things one way and Europe doing things other way. So yeah, I found that really interesting that they're doing the difference between two.
I tell you what, if IndyCar can make the aero screen work, then Formula One needs to consult with them and needs to get it in the sport.
Yeah. It's so less intrusive from a visual perspective.
Exactly, and I mean to be honest, it's not like I desperately need open cockpit. Do you remember a few years ago there was a Ferrari concept Formula One car with a closed cockpit, kind of like how you have on LMP1 prototypes?
Yeah.
And I actually thought it looked really good.
Yeah. I'm not. I don't think open cockpit is like the defining thing for a Formula One car. Actually, I think it's the general cockpit missile-like shape that works for me.
Yeah, it's and the open wheels.
Yeah.
Like, don't cover the wheels up. Oh, fucking hell.
We saw that a little bit.
I took the scenic route. It's okay, my lap time's invalidated, so it doesn't make a difference.
The weather's just gone from 3 rain to 1 rain on the cloud, so hopefully you'll be a little bit faster next time round.
Here's hoping.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
I mean,
as soon as the wheels are closed up, then that's when it starts to become a GT car for me, and it's that's the difference, as opposed to it being open cockpit. So yeah, I'm not opposed to the idea at all.
Because it just seems unnecessarily ugly. I'm fine with Halo for this year because I do believe it's the best solution they have available that has been developed in such a way that if something were to happen, it's probably been tested enough to know that you've done everything that you can to make it as safe as possible. That was a crap sentence, but hopefully you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like if they'd rushed aero screen out, and there was an accident, I don't know that even the fact that it was there would be enough to absolve them from responsibility for an accident, because the court would always say, well, wouldn't the halo have saved them? Do you know what I mean? Because this is what Brundle was saying. Like, at this point, you have to put halo on because everyone knows you've got the technology.
Yeah.
So it's not excusable not to have it.
Yeah.
But, it's only version 1 as well. It should get better. And the only thing for me about aero screen is that I can't... oh, shit. Almost lost it there. I can't figure out how... Oh, that was crap as well. Lost half a second. I cannot figure out how aero screen is actually safe in the way that I can comprehend how Halo would be. Right? I mean, obviously you look at Halo and think, wow, there's a lot of space it's not covering.
Yeah.
But it looks very, very solid and sturdy. Right? And I have no trouble, given how strong the survival cell is in a Formula One car, and the fact that we've seen it demonstrated, not least by Fernando in Australia last year. given it's made out of the same materials by the same engineers, I have no problem looking at something like the Jules Bianchi crash and saying, okay, if the Halo had been there, maybe he'd be alive today. Because I imagine it probably would have held, and it would have ramped the vehicle over his head rather than using his head to ramp it over his head.
Yeah.
Whereas an aero screen, it just, to me, looks like a flimsy bit of plastic.
Yeah, I don't know what that is made of and how that would deflect stuff back. And also, I guess, how, if that's smashed to little pieces, if it's that, is it like carbon fibre doesn't necessarily smash into shards that would then cut through your helmet or clothes or whatever and then lacerate you and cause you injuries, whereas when I look at that I just think, well, if a windshield's smashed, if it doesn't smash into little pieces or whatever, I don't really kind of understand the technology. I'd need to do more research.
Yeah, it's a difficult one because obviously aesthetically Aero Screen looks so much nicer.
Yeah.
But I just don't see the protective benefit of it. It's
no, and I didn't like how it looked like you was in like a glass tube of Smarties. It needed to be less sticky outy and more like an enclosed cockpit, like you would do in most other situations. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, I'm remaining open-minded about the whole Halo Aero Screen thing. Hopefully, IndyCar can prove it. Or you know, I'd be open to a combination of the two. So bear with me here, right? Take the central stanchion of a Halo device, right?
Yeah.
Split it in half and separate it and make it like a roll cage.
Yeah. That
then,
seems...
Yeah, you get where I'm coming at, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't need to change anything else. Just instead of having that central bar in the middle, split it in half and put it at the opposing corners of the cockpit opening.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could combine it with Aero Screen. You could put a screen there between the two bars.
No, that makes sense.
You know, and obviously I'm not talking about like a hard cuboid here. Like you could shape them, angle them, whatever. Just as long as it makes sure that something coming in. And I guess the reason they've got that central bar there is because they've realised, well, we need something there to stop whatever's coming hitting the driver full in the face.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, fair enough, makes sense. I could have been faster, but I missed my braking point again into turn one, so I'm going to have to surrender this topping the timing sheets in P1 to Lewis, unfortunately.
I have just overdriven this entire lap, so I'm about 1.5 seconds down on what I should be.
It's funny how that happens, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Speaking of overdriving, one Mr. Daniel Ricciardo, he has said that he holds his hands up and admits that, particularly towards the end of the season, he didn't compare very favourably to Max, and he was overdriving under the pressure. And it surprised me a little bit, partly because he didn't seem under pressure, but maybe he just is very good at coming across as relaxed and chilled and what have you.
Yeah.
But also, I would have said his problem was the same as Kimi's, that he was underdriving because he just didn't look hungry enough. Like I look at some of Ricciardo's, end of season performances, and Max was just eating him alive, and he didn't look like he was in the game at all, and that seems very out of character.
Maybe I've just not noticed, but I don't necessarily see it like that. But then I suppose I've got a soft spot for him, so I'm like majorly not the most objective person, because Verstappen could win everything, and now I'll just be like, well, of course he would. because of the way
Same.
how it's brought up press wise. So I probably don't give him the dues when he does deserve it. Yeah, I mean, Verstappen really was able to show us what he could do towards the end of the season, which was really, really great. I don't know if I'd necessarily have thought Ricciardo was poor. I know they kind of bitch about him in qualifying, particularly as being poor to Verstappen, but yeah, I'm not. Yeah, what do you think he needs to do then this year?
It's really hard to say, and it's funny that you say that because this came up in the context of Raikkonen. And Autosport published an article that was entitled "What Does Kimi Have to Do to Shake Off the Laggard Tag?" And I shared it on Twitter and said, "Oh, me! I've got an idea because it's fucking obvious."
Retire.
It really is a stupid question. Like, how does he stop being called slow? Well, he drives better, and the problem is I don't feel that's very. Particularly in the case of Ricciardo, I don't think that's really helpful commentary. But I definitely got a feel like I got from Raikkonen. I mean, the volume was turned down on it with Ricciardo, but it just felt like he wasn't really there somehow. And some of the gaps on the timing boards between him and Verstappen actually really concern me, given that we know from the season before, particularly in Malaysia, he's perfectly capable of putting his foot down and stamping himself as a better or comparable at least driver. And he just didn't seem to have that same hunger to prove himself.
I wonder if that is because the writing is on the wall, and I wonder if this all ties in with the Verstappen renewal contract where he signed in for a long time deal. I think we've spoken about it before where we've kind of said there must have been some kind of hidden terms behind the scenes that they're not willing to go into, which basically puts Ricciardo's dander down, because we've seen before that when something doesn't go his way, he does go a little bit sulky, takes a little bit of a Hamilton book. But normally that means that he comes back fighting, whereas I wonder if he's kind of went, well, screw you guys at Red Bull then, I'm going to take myself elsewhere, but has then kind of reserved his last 5% out on the track, maybe? I don't know.
Well, that's actually a pretty good analysis, and I would say actually, yeah, it does seem to coincide with the signing of Max Verstappen's contract. It does seem to align, actually, yeah.
Because for me, the Verstappen contract and the length of the contract, for a team that is not winning constructors and races, especially at that point, it wasn't even winning races necessarily, is pretty much we're putting our faith, we believe in you, we're working for you this Christmas, if you've seen all the travel TFL boards that go around. And actually, I think that shows a pretty... I think you get it anywhere where someone gets signed before the other and it's a long-term deal, and then you're like, I think it shows basically we've got more faith in this one than this one, quite publicly.
Yeah. I mean, and of course they say that they want to keep both of them and they really want Daniel there, and I actually believe them for once, whereas I felt that wasn't true with Webber, and they just felt they couldn't get rid of him without the fans completely turning their backs on the team. Whereas I do think they want Daniel there. They just see him as a natural number two.
Yeah.
Or what's a better way of saying it is the emerging number two.
Yeah.
Like he served his purpose as a weather vane and a performance guide in Max's first season there, and he did what he was supposed to do, which was beat him. He also beat him last season. But towards the end of the season, you could see sort of the ascendancy of Max that we always knew was coming, because he is prodigious. It's just your criticism and mine of him has always been, well, he doesn't have the racecraft and the experience yet, and he's too impatient.
Yeah.
And as we said last week, he seemed to get a handle on that towards the end of the year, and that makes him truly dangerous.
Yeah.
Because once he stops making those stupid mistakes, and has his head in the game, and is willing to play the long game in a way that Ricciardo's always been quite naturally inclined to do. That's what makes him truly dangerous. Because if you look back to their very entertaining battle in Malaysia, the reason Ricciardo won that battle, in my opinion, was both greater experience and racecraft, but it was... I got the sense that he almost wanted it less, which meant he didn't work as hard for it, but it sort of came to him naturally, and that sounds contradictory, I know, but I imagined within the cockpit that Max was driving it almost like a video game, and he really, really wanted to get in front, and Ricciardo seemed to be a lot calmer during that exchange. And it's a very hard thing to say because you don't see their faces, you can't hear what they're saying, they don't tell you what they're thinking. All you've got to look at is the driving, the way they're handling the wheel and everything. But if you look at all the times those two were wheel to wheel, you could see that Max was a lot more on the edge of his seat, it seemed, and a lot twitchier than Ricciardo was. And that was what we always said Max was lacking, that sort of quiet, confident inner knowledge that, well, just hold your ground and it will come to you.
Yeah.
I was a tenth up on myself there and then just all lost it by travelling sideways briefly.
Well, I've had 2 horrible laps and I've managed to hold up Hulkenberg, Hamilton and Massa.
Coulthard?
I don't know where that
You've done
came
well to
from.
hold Coulthard up. He's trying to get into the commentary box.
He's still got his chin on track from 2008. Boo.
So, yeah, I mean, it's not that I don't think Ricciardo can find his feet again and compete. I just sort of think that maybe he's already, on some level, resigned himself to this new position. Where this becomes a problem is that you're not advertising yourself well to your next team by switching off. And I'd still love Ferrari to surprise us and pick up Ricciardo, but it just won't happen, will it?
No.
It just seems such a good fit to me. And if Ferrari need anything, they need someone with some personality.
Personality and levity.
Yeah.
In that high pressure, high bunny boiling environment, they need someone with levity, because when everyone's like screwdriver turn could mean that you're going to get your hand chopped off in a career move or something like that. It needs to be that you can let off that steam somewhere, and even if it's someone just doing it publicly in the press, giving out that. Oh, sorry, Jeff was confusing me by saying something I hadn't heard before. It's a good way for the team to let off steam and stop making mistakes through pressure rather than through just being poor, if that makes sense.
It does. Speaking of which, there is actually a lot of new Jeff goodness kicking around. I think the last update added a lot of stuff.
Okay.
Because we were talking about it last time as well, that I've been hearing Jeff come out with a lot of stuff that he's never said before, and I've been getting failures that I don't recall encountering before.
I had that in my career mode after literally the next day I'd done a career race, and then I got the same your data's showing weirdness. I couldn't work out what the data was supposed to be showing weird though, so I just kind of went, okay.
It varies every time you get the error, so it could have been your tyre temperatures and brake temperatures were wrong, it could have been your remaining fuel. It can also be timing data, so in the race it might tell you, you get that projection if you stop now where you will come out.
Yeah.
That can give you wrong information as well, I believe. So it varies. It can also be stuff like your wear readings. And it's a nice feature. I'm surprised it wasn't in at launch, actually, because that seems like a fairly non-offensive... Because the problem they have is that people hate failures in games, right? They don't like to feel they've been screwed by a roll of the dice or anything.
Yeah.
And even though you and I wish they would put in proper failures like they used to have in the good old days, they tried it with F1 2015 and everyone rage quit and they had to remove it in a patch.
Yes.
Do you remember that? It was our Oh, was it our McLaren season?
Yeah,
And,
yeah, it was.
When the game first launched, everyone was complaining, saying that my engine keeps bursting into flames, and then they just got rid of it.
Yeah, it made me angry. That was it. Nothing wrong with a bit of management of car. This track.
No, I mean, I think it makes races more interesting, actually. And I had a great career mode race this morning at Monaco. I won Monaco for the first time.
Oh my god!
I can't believe I didn't open with that. In all these years of games, I've never won Monaco, and I won it today. I'm delighted. But I had a really great strategic race.
Nice.
Where I managed to clinch pole. I led in the first stint, but I started on the harder tyre. And Bottas and Hamilton pitted to switch from ultra softs to super softs, and they were gaining on me massively. And I went from having a 22-second lead to a 11-second lead when I came into the pits. So I came out in third on ultra softs, and then I had to get past them in traffic at Monaco while their super softs were going off. And eventually I got through, but it was a very cool race, actually. I really enjoyed it. And I think anything that involves a bit of stratagems is good.
I tell you what, I hope you're going on dries, because this is dry territory for me. I'm coming in. DRS hasn't been turned on, rather, but this is going to be very close.
I'm not confident, because if I bin it, then I'm out for the next session. And also, I'm nearly a second ahead of Bottas in third, so I don't want to.
I'm going to
Bottas
wait.
has just gone out on inters.
I'm going to wait, and then I'm going to go out on dries right at the last minute.
Bottas has just gone on an out lap on inters. Ocon 2.
Okay. The rain has stopped, though.
I mean, I'd like to see you do it, but I also don't want to see you crash and then it'd be a one-car quali again. But if you could pull it off, I'd be greatly impressed.
So, talking of strategy where things are like for 2018, one of the things that I am mega excited to see, actually, now that I've bitched about it long enough. Oh no, the soft tire, the dry tyres are 4 seconds slower at the minute, it says. Don't worry. I'm really interested to see how the different tyre compounds play out.
Lap times are dropping.
Yeah, me too, actually. They've said that they're aiming for 2-stop races, and I think that's a good thing. A lot of people, though, particularly on social media, I saw, have been raging about pit stops. They say it's stupid and artificial.
What?
Yeah, genuinely, there's quite a sizable number of people who want to do away with pit stops.
That really surprises me.
Because they say that it interferes with the racing. I would argue it doesn't. It actually creates more racing.
I do.
But hell, what do I know?
You're only a lifelong Formula One watcher and
yeah, I've only been
extraordinaire.
watching Formula One for 28 years.
Christ.
So what would I know? God, I just read that sentence back to myself in my mind, and I was thinking, "Fuck, you're old."
Oh, I just tried to go out on track on the super softs. Oh, it now says it's come up saying unsuitable tyre warning. Ignore or go to track or switch to a recommended compound.
Ah, sneaky. I guess what this means is we're going to have a dry Q or a wet to dry Q3.
Yeah.
What's good is that we should all have free tyre choice
We should.
for the race.
Indeed, I am worried that we're not going to make it through.
Is a 1 minute 34.2.
Shit, do you think?
I think you'll be all right. I don't think I will be. I think the pull up in time is going to be too good. It's already gained a second and a half in the outlap. Me just flicking between compounds.
You've got time to do another lap though, right?
Nope.
Are you out?
No. Because I was going to go super softs and it wouldn't let me, and I panicked, and then it said not enough time.
Oh shit.
So never mind.
Well, it's alright. It adds a bit of tension to
It
proceedings.
does. Oh,
Adds a bit of tension.
engage sphincter.
Right, I'm gonna then watch Sebastian Vettel knock me off pole, I suppose. And while we do that, we'll touch on some other smaller pieces of news. This week's contradictory statements in the news award goes to Sauber for
Yay!
a press release that said we don't think it's excusable or acceptable to excuse bad performance last year based on an old engine. We don't think that's a viable excuse. Then 2 days later, released a statement saying that they expect to make massive gains by switching to the new engine. Oh no, I held on.
Well done.
I tell you what, that must have been a hell of a fucking lap that I put in.
Yeah. 7 tenths.
Whew,
Nice.
sneaky beaky. And you managed to hold on to fifth. Like you actually had me worried at first.
I thought that was going to be much worse than what it was. That was good. Sorry, do you continue with Sauber contradictory?
Yeah. So what they're saying is that an old Ferrari engine is not bad enough to be a detriment to performance.
Yeah.
But a new Ferrari engine is so good, just generally, not in relation to the old engine, because the old engine is good, we've established that. The new engine is equally good in a way that should deliver a massive performance boost. I just don't know who proofreads the stuff that these teams put out. Who actually looks at this stuff?
Do you think the first one was submitted by Ferrari PR and the second one was already pre-planned by Sauber PR, and then they kind of went, oh.
I think you are definitely beginning to see the effect of this new relationship. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely you are. But I'm okay with it because, if there's a team that's right for it, it's Sauber.
Yeah. Well, it's got such a long history of being sister team, or a partner team of Sauber. It just, a Ferrari. It feels like a natural home. It's just where they've always been. I know BMW was wonderful for a little while, and that was grand, but this wilderness where they just seem to be off on their own. I was like, please come back and be Ferrari's little friend, please. And now it's happening, and I feel happy.
Yeah, me too. I think it's a team that is secure enough in itself that I think it's fine to vote how Ferrari tells it to vote, because it's in a position where it's really got nothing to lose by doing so.
No.
And if you don't align yourself with a bigger team when you're in that position, then you're just going to burn through your cash and you're going to go bankrupt.
Yep.
So I think they've been very wise. What I'm surprised about still is that they cancelled the Honda deal, given how much money was on the table. But given how things have turned out with the Alfa Romeo branding deal, which we didn't know was going to happen when they announced the cancellation of the Honda deal, then you can say in retrospect it was a very smart decision, but at the time I felt it was a big risk to be taking
within an hour
of the team. yeah well, because we know that the investors agreed to put more money into the team, but they weren't happy about it. And you know that just isn't going to last. So it seemed really stupid to turn down a guaranteed 30-something million a year on free engines. It seemed ridiculous. But I'm guessing Ferrari must be offering comparable terms in this deal. I mean, we don't actually know how much money they're getting from Ferrari as part of this deal, but we know they are getting money, as well as the engines for free, as well as the gearboxes now. And some other components.
Nice.
Because Sauber were still building their own gearboxes, I believe. Either that or they were using X-Track, I forget.
Oh God, X-Track.
So it's it's a very comprehensive package that they've managed to secure. I'm sure Haas are looking wistfully over in Ferrari's direction and batting their eyelids. Remember us? But I don't know why Ferrari would feel the need to follow through on this alleged Maserati deal, even though they seem to be the ones pushing the idea, even in the press. I can't see why they need to do it at 2 teams when 1 would be enough. The only thing I can think of, and it's a lot of people are saying, well, it's in case they move to Formula E and they can follow through on their threat to leave Formula 1 without actually leaving Formula 1. And I was thinking, well, it's a very convoluted way of doing it. I think what it actually is that they anticipate a need to form a voting bloc.
Yeah.
And presumably they're looking at the changes that Liberty Media are going to propose, one of which is to cut down Ferrari's money just for being Ferrari, and the other is like wealth redistribution, I suppose, by altering how prize money works. They're probably building a voting bloc to enable them to secure the incentives they already receive. So I'm guessing this is probably going to lead to a situation where Liberty has some great ideas for protecting smaller teams and then just doesn't get to push them through somehow.
No, I completely agree. To me, this is all about protecting. It's cheaper to stick 30 million in a Sauber to save 50 million of Ferrari benefits. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, it makes complete sense to me, and yeah, I can just see, because I can't remember what the actual percentage it is that people that are like a vote actually needs to be successful, because it's not 100% surely on everything.
There's some where you need unanimity, but I believe that's only when the season's already in progress.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking, all things being equal and everyone gets 1 vote. That was terrible, Smith. What would you need? 70% vote completion. Well, Ferrari's going to vote for them. Haas, if they get Maserati, probably written in the rules to sort them out there as well. Depending on what Mercedes vote for, Red Bull will vote the opposite because they hate each other. So yeah, it makes more sense to have voting powers because when you look at Mercedes will bring Williams and Force India with them. So that's 60% of the grid already decided on their votes. Renault are fascinating because I don't think they particularly pull any particular loyalty with them.
They don't seem to wield a lot of political power, do they?
No, they don't. I find them quite apolitical. I don't know if that's just because where they're not at the sharp end of the grid, they're causing problems. But I guess even when they was at the sharp end of the grid, I was too busy wondering what on earth Flavio Briatore was concocting next, as opposed to actually what their team was up to politically, or how they would cheat next. They're too busy undoing their own problems.
Well, I mean, it's interesting to say that though, because if you think about it, Renault, in theory, should have a similar sized voting bloc.
Yeah, because they would pull.
Because they've got Red Bull and they've got McLaren.
Yeah.
And I can see, and we're going to touch on this in our McLaren special during the race, but I can see McLaren squaring up for a fight with Mercedes and Ferrari.
Yeah.
From the statements they've been making recently and some of the moves they're beginning to make. They are serious about getting back to the front. I don't believe they'll do it, but they are serious about attempting to do it, and they seem to be on an inevitable collision course with Ferrari and Mercedes, which makes them and Renault natural allies. But you're right in the sense that I think Renault, out of all the engine manufacturers, wields the least political influence right now, because I mean, even Honda wields more influence because the FIA seem desperate to stop them walking away from the sport.
Yeah.
And I imagine partly that's diversity, but also I imagine it's because of the money they bring into the sport.
And the reputation that it will have as that the only engine manufacturer to have come in for the last X amount of years has utterly fallen on their arse.
Yeah,
so then who else
it needs to work, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's one of those. It would be like, oh, I don't know. Let me think. I can't think of anything now.
But I mean,
No.
sorry, please finish your point.
No, don't. It would be like if Susie Wolff drove in a Grand Prix and was absolutely terrible. They'd have to cover it up with a mechanical failure that done it all the way through, so that it would show that women could not competed. If that makes sense. It's an awkward line to throw, but you get what I'm getting at.
It's I want to touch on something you said a moment ago, actually, which makes insanely good sense to me. Which is, it's cheaper for them to throw 30 million at Sauber than it is for them to lose 50 million in incentives they get just for being themselves. To expand on that point, because I think it's an excellent point. Do I have enough time to get round again? Yes, I do.
Yes, you do.
To expand on that point, which I think is a brilliant one, it also makes sense for Sauber, because the most they can hope to get right now under the current rules is 10 million for coming last.
Yeah.
So 30 million for them is significant, and it's guaranteed. And suddenly they're far less interested in, at least in the duration of this deal, which it may seem a very short-sighted way to deal this way for Sauber, given their precarious position overall. But I invite people to consider the fact that they can't look at long-term stability until they've sorted short-term survival.
Yeah, exactly.
So for them to be able to say, well, okay, we'll forfeit significant changes in how prize money is distributed right now to secure a guaranteed 30 million a season plus better tech in our cars, plus access to a talented pool of junior drivers, well, it's just obvious, isn't it? It's just completely obvious. And to be honest, I suppose it makes sense for Haas as well, not that they're taking advantage of it. I don't know how much of that, as we touched on last week, is actually stubbornness on the part of Gene Haas.
Yeah,
he wants to come in and he wants to win.
Yeah, I don't know. But you are completely right, though, that in order to survive short term, then enables you to build a finance and a platform for you to then succeed long term. And why not make friends on the way?
Yeah, I mean, they're probably saying, well, we're not happy with the way prize money is distributed right now, but we can't fix it if we're liquidated. So why don't we get ourselves back on our feet and we can address the political issue later? Oh, bugger. I just completely balls that lap. I was going to be faster as well. I might lose pole over this.
I don't know.
I knew it was too good to be true. I've never had a pole on merit.
It might happen. Let's see. The interesting thing with politics, though, is who is politically stronger, Renault or Red Bull, and then who would actually have the call to pull the line if they was having a debate or an argument. Who would fall behind the other? Because I know they would go like, "Oh, we're a united strength" and all of that kind of stuff. But actually, why is it?
Yeah, it's a good point, because they're sort of in a sense they're natural allies, but they're already enemies. Frenemies, I believe is the term.
Yeah.
Because it's clear they don't want to work together anymore.
Yeah.
And that's why McLaren are going to become so invaluable to Renault, I think, in the world of politics, because Red Bull will probably be making all their decisions now based on what Aston Martin is chirping in their ear.
Yeah.
So regulation changes that are bad for their current engine supplier, but bad for the current engine supplier, but good for the one they want to have from 2021. They're going to probably take the long-term view, I think, because they're not concerned about financial stability.
No, exactly.
Whereas McLaren seem to have a much more vested interest in Renault succeeding, not least because they're in a multi-season deal. Did you just crash?
No, I was I was a second up, and then Jeff went, "This lap's rubbish, abandon it." And I was like, "No, I'm not." And then as soon as I was too busy thinking, "Why is he telling me that?" I just went and done a massive tank slapper at Ascari, and then have dropped to last.
God damn it! I've dropped to 5th,
Boo.
and I'm fastest in sector 2. I just ballsed up sector 1 really badly.
No man. We can get him.
But yeah, it really does seem to me that McLaren have the most interest in Renault succeeding, and I'm pretty confident now in saying that McLaren are not going to be building their own power units. They've said recently, "Oh, we won't really have any impact on the Renault power units until 2020, which is in theory the last year of their partnership." But the fact they're already talking in those terms says to me they probably have an interest in making the partnership work. I guess they've probably done a cost-benefit analysis on producing their own power units, looked at how hard Honda have found it, and given, like, people will criticise Honda all day about their involvement in Formula One or whatever, but Honda professionally and in huge scale and quantity and quality produce engines on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And you can mock them all you want, but as a company that doesn't produce its own engines, you've got to look at them failing like that and take it as a serious sign that, well, this really isn't that easy. So I would think that McLaren have probably hitched their wagon to Renault for the long term, which is surprising and a little bit sad.
Yeah.
Because that to me says that they're not going to be championship contenders long term.
Yeah, yeah. Which I think conveniently segues on to, I think, your description of surprising but sad. Your views on the first couple of episodes of the new McLaren documentary that's on Amazon Prime.
Yeah. The first thing I want to do is I want to caveat the following analysis by saying it is worth watching. It is great. But I will describe it here the way I described it to you before we went live, which is you can tell McLaren made it. Which, if you don't know what I mean by that, and I'm talking here like Ron Dennis McLaren, it feels sterilized somehow. It's very nicely shot. Some of the camera work is very nice, but it feels like posh reality TV. I think that's a good way of looking at it, actually, because like normally reality TV is like, oh no, I've got my tits out, and and things like that, right? And it's all staged. Well, this is exactly the same. So the cameras go into meetings of like the technical staff and everything, and it's almost like they're reading lines, which tells me that the real meeting either happened before the cameras entered the room or is happening after the cameras leave the room. And while I agree that, like, the analysis says, this is the most unprecedented, unrestricted access anyone's ever had to McLaren, and they're a famously secretive team. And I'm like, yeah, that is all true, and I can believe that looking at it. But it doesn't mean McLaren are not sort of like, McLaren are letting you into the house, but it doesn't mean they're not putting their arm around your shoulder and steering you away from different rooms they don't want you to see.
Yeah.
And I definitely get the feeling that's happening. Particularly with the way it seems to be focusing very heavily on Stoffel rather than the team itself. Like, you're seeing a lot, and it is very interesting. You're seeing a lot about what it means to be in your first year in Formula One and what actually the daily life of a Formula One driver entails. You see all his PR stuff and him having to pick his words very carefully and stuff. I'm going to pause for a second, because what are you doing on strategy?
So now it's told me to go mediums and then super softs.
Same, but I do like the look of the two-stop strategy. Because I don't like the mediums.
I don't really either. I think.
I tell you what, this calls for a Ben special.
Uh-oh.
This calls for an Esteban special. What's the shortest way for me to do this?
I'm going to try the mediums because I think I'm going to lose a front wing quite quickly. I don't like it though.
I think I'm going to go super soft, soft, super soft.
Ooh.
Now that is quite aggressive, and it is apparently 13 seconds slower than medium super softs. But that differential isn't actually so bad when you consider a pit stop is what, 25 to 27 seconds?
No.
And the thing is, I just think I would do well to be on a faster tyre at the start.
Yeah.
Somehow. But also, I get the feeling that stopping twice might bite me in the bollocks.
I'm having an Austria feeling where we went 2 stops because it's a short. This is a short race. That's why I'm thinking try for the 1 if poss. And I'm hoping my slipstream, because I'm starting back in 10. Hopefully, I'll be able to slipstream and keep up with people, even though I'm on a softer compound or harder.
All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go the other way.
Woohoo!
And I'm going to start on super softs.
Ooh.
And finish on mediums.
That will let you flick if you're thinking no, go for the softs and do it on the fly.
Then I can always switch to the 2-stop strategy if I need to.
Yeah.
50. Oh, wow. Tyre wear. I could be cutting it a little fine on tyre wear by running to lap 11, but I think it's possible for me to pull it off. And I can always pay it on lap 10 if I need to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it is still a Ben. It is still a Ben special. But I don't know. It's just something about that 2-stop strategy that looks exciting to me. But okay, are we ready, sir?
Ready when
and I'll
you
get
are,
back
sir.
onto the McLaren special once we've got round the first laps.
Lap. Yeah, I think that might be wise with this one.
Particularly because I'm not first, which I was secretly hoping I would be.
Everything looks good on the power units.
Everyone else is on super softs, back to Massa in 13. So.
Oh, so we did well then, because it was trying to start me on mediums. And I think I would have lost so much time being on that tyre, because it's 2 compounds harder.
Yeah.
I wondered then if a lot of these are actually on that 2-stop strategy, you know. Because I would have expected if they're 1-stopping and the AI is telling me to start on mediums, that it would have started them on mediums as well. So I think we're seeing a lot of 2-stoppers here, mate.
Interesting.
That is my Ted's notebook prediction.
Love it. Boo. I'm looking forward to Ted's notebooks testing, because he goes on 25-minute rants about people's front wing end plates, and you can see the joy on his face. It's wonderful.
I'm so terrified being anywhere near the AI.
Yes, especially here.
Well, the thing is like I don't really like getting into battles because they'll just nudge you into the barrier and it won't have any effect on them.
Yeah.
Scary times. But once we're out of turn 2, then I can get back onto talking about McLaren, because I've got a lot to talk about. We've got Lando Norris, we've got Alonso, we've got a lot of McLaren topics to discuss. I can talk about something inconsequential while we're on pause about talking on the TV series. McLaren Plus has been cancelled.
What's McLaren Plus?
It's the paid fan club membership where they send you like a gift box each year with like merch and stuff in it, and you get discounts in the shop and you get to attend special events. I'm a member, and I got a mail telling me, well, it still exists, but we're not taking money for it anymore. And instead of giving you like a gift box, we're giving you something even better, which is fan events, which is basically saying stuff that you can't make it to or afford to attend. But it was funny because they used to be big in the 90s. Like Formula One team fan clubs were a big thing. You know, you'd have your card in your wallet and everything. And McLaren was the last to do them, and now even they've stopped.
Interesting.
Oh, I am bricking my pants.
All signs is on mediums as well.
Okay, you need to give that.
Oh, I've done an illegal overtake on you. Go free, mate.
Oh. It's only because I was shit scared.
No, I got caught. Ricardo's on the mediums. Sorry, on the softs, not the mediums.
I have a lot of catching up to do now because I just bricked it completely going into turn 1. And I'm scared about overtaking these guys, actually.
I am holding everyone else up already, don't worry.
I'm grateful for that. Do you know, I'm actually finding it harder to speak here than Monaco. Suddenly, because like they're too wide all the way down, and I don't know how to get through without them ramming me into oblivion.
My
Bugger
car
off.
is very, very, very skinny.
Can I get past Verstappen? I can.
Nice.
Took it.
Ah, he's on the softs as well. Okay.
So there's a lot of strategy variation running. I like that.
I like he lots.
They're 3 wide going into turn 1. Stop it, guys, please.
Ouch.
Oh shit! Thanks, Perez. Knocking my end plate off.
Uh-oh.
This sucks because it really impairs your ability to hold on in the fast corners, so you lose a shitload of time.
Mm-hmm.
Double overtake though, up to 3rd.
No Verstappen.
This is where I start to feel the effects of losing that front wing end plate though, because Raikkonen just blasts away. Coming out of the fast corners. Oh, that's why Bottas was so slow. He's on the mediums. I think though he is living evidence that it was the right decision to switch to super softs at the start. He's going to be fast at the end though. Dangerous. Anyway, now I've got a bit of breathing room. Let's get back on topic a little bit. Yeah, the McLaren documentary is definitely worth the watch. It does feel very sterilised. But there are some interesting moments in it, but I'm more excited to see the episodes where the season has begun. Just because I feel that's where the real drama is going to lie.
Sure.
Get off me, Raikkonen.
Because people will be more angry.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some clips actually, where he's making the announcement in the pit garage that they decided to separate from Honda, and I imagine there's quite a lot of drama between them there. I don't want to give too many spoilers because I don't know who might see this who hasn't already seen the episodes, and I don't want them to have to switch off and not listen to us because they know I'm going to spoil the episodes for them. But there is a minor scene when Honda first arrived to install the engine, and of course it doesn't fit. And none of the engineers speak English. There seems to be a guy like interpreting for them, and he's holding a bunch of technical drawings, and there's like a McLaren engineer trying to negotiate the drawings out of his hand because he has to go and fabricate some new bolts to fit the engine, and that's quite a good scene. And then the guys in Sakura are having to write a new piece of computer code for the startup software for the engine. and McLaren are being very diplomatic and saying, well, obviously they want to make sure we're using the latest code so we can identify any problems or anything. So the fire-up's been delayed by an hour, and we're waiting for this code to come through from Sakura, and then those guys can go home and we can start our work here. And they send through the code and gather the entire building to watch the engine fire up. And you can hear like a click where there's an igniter firing, but the engine just doesn't engage. And they can't go near it because apparently the way the software works is the engine could start without them pressing a button. Like it could just start of its own volition.
It sounds like a torpedo. It's a landmine. Back away. How funny.
And so, yeah, that was interesting, particularly because some of the Honda engineers actually laugh, which particularly after 3 seasons, you'd sort of think, I wouldn't be doing that, not in front of McLaren. They're just lucky Big Ron isn't there.
Oh God, could you imagine his face?
Yeah, I mean, for me, that's the only regrettable thing, that Big Ron isn't in it at all.
Poor Ronnie.
Also, keep your eye out for Sheikh Mansour, one of the majority shareholders of McLaren, being shown the new livery and being completely underwhelmed by it, because that tickled me no end.
Excellent.
So yeah,
what I did quite
go out and watch it.
What I did quite like when you were telling me about this before we went live was the episode names that you were mentioning.
Oh yeah.
Which I think actually sounds like a comedy series waiting to happen.
Built to Fail was was one of them, and the other one was Shakedown to Breakdown.
Excellent.
Which is phenomenal title work, Amazon. Good on you. It's also narrated by Michael Douglas for some reason. So if you want to hear a Formula 1 documentary narrated by 90s Batman, then they've got you covered. What is good about it is you do see the detail work of Formula 1 that you don't otherwise appreciate. Sure. And I have to give credit to McLaren where it's due, that they do seem to let a lot of their staff speak on the record quite openly, which is very interesting. You get to see the human face of McLaren to some extent, even though the whole thing feels very McLaren, as in it's sort of sterilised and stuff. At the opening scene, they're preparing for a shareholders meeting that subsequently confirmed Zach Brown as the new CEO, and there's a guy in an immaculate suit walking around, and he's like straightening the drinks glasses, and he's got a McLaren branded piece of metal in his hand with a handle.
What?
And you wonder, it looks a bit like a large rectangular trowel, or like, you know those things that bricklayers have.
Yeah.
Where they hold it in the hand like an artist's palette, and they've got 2 of them, and they use that to mix the cement.
Yeah.
He's got one of those, but of course it's spotlessly clean. It's got the McLaren logo on it, and you think, what the fucking hell is that for? And then he puts it between the 2 chairs, and it's a chair spacer.
No.
And I said to myself when I was watching it, I was like, that is possibly the most McLaren thing I've ever seen. A McLaren branded chair spacer to make sure that the shareholders sit equidistant from each other all the way around the table.
That is nuts. Nuts. No wonder that team must have some financial problems at some point in their life, if that is the kind of wankery that they have to... Oh my God.
Well, I mean, it's interesting, right? Because that's the sort of attitude that did win them Constructors' Championships.
Oh, absolutely.
And
absolutely.
And it's very easy to forget that they are actually the second most successful team in Formula 1 history. Because, you know, they haven't been successful in so long. I mean, they haven't won a race in half a decade.
Which sounds nuts when you say it like that.
Yeah. So, I think, you know, we've had this conversation before, right? About how the old Formula 1 patriarchal style of, and I loathe to use that word, but it was patriarchal, right? That there was like a big daddy figure, you know, your Frank Williams, your Ken Tyrrell, your Peter Sauber.
Daddy? Yeah.
That, you know, there was like a head of the team who called all the shots and everything.
Yeah.
And we said, well, that teams that still have that structure seem to be at a disadvantage now, and teams that have taken the route of Red Bull were the pioneers really of dividing responsibility up, because they gave Adrian Newey a lot of agency when he joined the team, and Peter Prodrumo was doing his bits and bobs, and then you had Helmut Marko looking after the drivers, you had Christian Horner running race operations, and Dietrich was handling like the mothership aspects of the team.
Yeah.
I think now you're in a position actually where the lack of flexibility and liquidity that McLaren exhibits is starting to hold it back. And this attitude of, I mean, the thing is like they say in the first episode, we haven't won since 2012 and we're not happy about it. And like I believe that.
Yeah.
And they say we're very hard on ourselves every time there's a failure. It's not a word we like. And I was like, yeah, I can believe that about McLaren. But at the same time, like it's almost like they're paying lip service to that fact. And in reality, they still think they're the McLaren of the 80s and 90s. And what was interesting is, you see Zach Brown come in, and out of everyone involved, I've actually developed quite a fondness for Zach Brown, because I think he's got the right head on his shoulders for dealing with a team in the position McLaren's in, because he's under no illusion, right? And he's not part of the old guard.
Yeah.
What surprised me was how Eric Bouyer, we saw from F1's actual coverage that he turned into kind of a dick after joining the team. He wouldn't talk to anybody.
Yeah.
But he reeks of old guard.
Oh,
and
really?
I didn't realise I didn't realise he'd come into the team in such a senior position, actually.
Ah.
Because I thought he'd been brought in as run the race operations, and to some extent he has, but he's like an executive director or something. Like he's on the board.
Oh.
And the way he talks about McLaren compared to how Zach Brown talks about McLaren is very different. And what's interesting is, seeing Zach Brown come in and say, right, we're changing how the cars look, and they actually talk about why all the cars previously were monochromatic, and Ron wanted like monochromatic designs with straight lines, and like a lot of work went into the liveries in terms of precision, but not imagination.
Sure.
And Zach comes in and is like, well, I want a new naming structure for the chassis, and I want a fresh look, and we need to send a message that this is a new McLaren. And it seems like he's almost fighting against the tide of stagnation, because the other people you get there, and there's some people they were talking to one guy during Stoffel's seat fitting, and one of them said, how long have you been doing seat fittings for McLaren? And he said something like 23 years or something. Who was your first driver? Senna. And he obviously looks rightly proud about that, but you also sort of think, well, this is just a mechanic. How many other people have been at McLaren so long? Like, how much new ideas and new blood does the team actually get? Because the shareholders haven't changed in a very long time.
Sure.
Big Ron had been there for 30-something years.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like Zach Brown is trying his best to modernise the team, and the team is fighting him every step of the way.
Interesting.
And getting off the TV for a moment, I think that is the fundamental dichotomy of the McLaren problem these days, right? Where it's a double-edged sword, because the fresh direction that Zach Brown is taking them in could just as easily deliver them to a point where they just are not competitive, possibly ever again. He's quite candid in the documentary about the fact they need to replace their title sponsor, and they're really struggling to do it, and you can only perform if you can spend, and they're reaching a point where they can no longer spend out of their own pockets.
Sure.
Which is interesting to hear them actually say it. A lot of people had assumed it.
Yeah.
Because McLaren are wealthy. Let's not mess around here. But are they actually Formula One wealthy?
No, and their pockets can. You can't have unlimited deep pockets forever. Everything comes to an end in that way. But I also do get why they don't just sign up some old thing for half the price when because it will work out for them if they have a great year this year and get back up the rank again. That they can then sell a title sponsor potentially at a much better price than what they would have done, say, 2 years ago when they were really, really floundering. But you're always going for it. Vettel's gone for mediums, by the way.
It's interesting because you can see in Zach Brown's strategy, actually, you can tell he's a marketing man.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about the TV show here. I'm talking about like within Formula One and what he said during the season, right? Because what you'll notice is, if you recall, when Big Ron was still in charge and he couldn't get a title sponsor, if you look at stuff like the rear wing, for a while they ran it blank, but they actually started putting other sponsors on there that were minor sponsors.
Yeah.
So there was Sensodyne on there for a while.
Yeah.
Lucozade, but they weren't the team's title sponsors.
No.
And what Zach Brown did was say, well, if we can't get someone to buy the space, we don't give it away. We brand it ourselves. So that's why this year the rear wing, is McLaren branded. Mm-hmm. And that's a classic confidence trick of marketing. Like it's the cliche, isn't it? Like what you do as a professional marketer is when times are lean, you go out and buy a sports car because it gives the impression to your clients that, hey, I'm successful.
Yeah.
And it's all about confidence.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he's trying to do, right? He's trying to say everything's cool here. If we don't find a title sponsor, no sweat. We can get by. We can brand it ourselves, which is quite interesting. But I'm still not entirely convinced that long-term being a customer to Renault is a smart place for them to be. And I can't see how they can get out of it now they're in. Because I can't conceive of a scenario where Ferrari or Mercedes would supply them and it be equivalent to a works deal. It just won't be. Sure. And I think it's great that Renault are willing to supply them, but I also think if I had to pick between the two teams who's going to win a Constructors' Championship first, I'd honestly put my money on Renault.
Yeah, agree.
And I actually think Renault could be really competitive this year. And people are talking in terms of, well, it'll be Red Bull and McLaren fighting for third in the Constructors and Renault will be fifth. I could actually see it being the other way around.
I'm not so sure this year. I think 2019 definitely the other way around, though.
I'd be interested to see which of us comes out right there, because it's not like I'm confident in my prediction, but what I'm saying is it wouldn't surprise me.
I think, I wouldn't be surprised if it did happen. I just think that Renault know that they're on a bit of a longer trajectory, whereas McLaren have it's almost like they've already decided we need to be super competitive this year, and then the pressure comes on, and then what happens if they turn up and those Renaults blow up in Australia, and then it's all like, oh my god. So there's a plethora of issues and worries that I have.
Well, exactly, because I don't believe switching from the fourth best engine on the grid to the third is going to be a light speed improvement. And Renault's reliability was pretty cack at the end of the year anyway. And by the end of the season, Honda was actually able to deliver some performance that was comparable to Renault. And don't get me wrong, I understand completely why they broke the deal off, because you would get fed up, right? Yeah. But at the same time, there are some people who hold the same opinion, that it could entirely be possible for Honda to find their feet this year. And then suddenly, you've already got the bizarre situation that Toro Rosso is a works team and Red Bull is not. But
yes.
But let's say Honda actually...
I love that, by the way.
Yeah, me too. But let's just, devil's advocate for a second, right? Let's just say that Honda managed to leapfrog Renault Like their new engine suddenly delivers out of nowhere. First of all, that puts into a strange perspective Red Bull's apparent tie-up with Cosworth and Aston Martin, because it's assumed that this year will be the last year of Red Bull Renault.
Yeah.
Because Renault and Red Bull don't really want to work together, and it's supposed to be a transition year, right, where they see what Honda can deliver for Toro Rosso, and if they can deliver adequate performance, then we'll have both Red Bull teams powered by Honda.
Yeah.
But if Honda do start delivering, then I think you are in a very interesting position, not least because McLaren are likely to come out as the absolute losers from that scenario, because it'll be a lot of their data used to make the Honda engine good. They've taken all the pain but got none of the benefit. But also, they'd then be in a direct fight with two works-powered teams that they can't realistically compete with over time. Like, you play the racing game over time, and the works teams will always come out on top.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just don't like McLaren as a customer. I really don't. What was interesting though is that Toto Wolff said, and we missed it. He said maybe 2 months ago that they were perfectly prepared to provide engines to McLaren again.
Oh, really?
They were very happy to do it. Yeah.
That surprises me somewhat.
And he expressed a little bit of surprise that they didn't want to do it.
I wonder if that's just stuffy, we can't go back, it has to be seen as a step forward change, not a reversal.
Well, I actually get the feeling that Renault probably offered a sweeter deal. I imagine Mercedes knew they were holding all the cards, and they wanted... I think they wanted something that Mercedes was not willing to give. Or maybe
Parity.
Mercedes wanted... Yeah, or maybe Mercedes wanted Wehrlein in the seat.
Oh, maybe. Interesting.
Because, in that relationship, Mercedes is the dominant partner, isn't it? Whereas in the Renault relationship, it's really hard to say, because out of all the engine suppliers, like if I had to be a customer team, I suppose I would pick Renault. Because historically and recently, they've shown that they are prepared to, as far as is reasonable, treat customer teams equally to their works teams.
Yeah.
I think that will become a very different scenario once their works team is winning, or capable of winning. But otherwise, I think that's the team, that's the engine supplier, where you've got the absolute best chance of getting a fair crack of the whip as their customer.
Oh, hello.
Oh, hello.
Hello. I'm pitching at the end of this lap, by the way.
All right, so I won't.
Unless I do something really, really stupid like that.
It's all right. I ran wide.
I looked behind and I was like, "That's not the racing line either." Yeah.
I get very scared when we're next to each other on track.
You can tell we've gone both quiet. We're like,
Yeah, we've gone very quiet, and I've been taking those corners excellently all Grand Prix, and then I completely balls them.
Yeah. Same.
Has the doors? I had to slam on the brakes there because I didn't know if you were going to spin, and I would have speared into the side of you. Uh-oh.
Oh no, schmummies!
I'm going to try not to turn in on you now. And in doing so, I run wide. There's probably some people who'll watch this at some point and wish that we'd raced each other a bit harder there, but I just had no confidence that we wouldn't both die in a fiery crash.
No, exactly. Exactamundo.
Right, we've got a lot more McLaren topics to cover and only 10 laps in which to do it, but I also have some questions, so
okay.
Let's crack on with McLaren. I'll try and get the questions in at the end because I got some Twitter questions. So moving on, I wanted to put this at the top of the show, but I'll wheel it out now just in case we run out of time.
Right.
I have had the best week ever in terms of reading McLaren's attempts to justify Fernando's decision to go to Toyota for WEC.
Yeah.
Because they have been the best statements I've had in recent months. This is pure press release gold.
Okay.
So their position is that Fernando's involvement with Toyota is minimal. We've been very firm with Fernando. His involvement with Toyota is to be minimised. He is first and foremost a McLaren F1 driver. It must be made very clear that this is the case. We can't afford to be lenient with him. We're not pushovers. So what we have said is that all that's allowed is for him to compete in basically every race.
Okay.
Which is akin to my analogy is, well, I've been very firm on my wife. The institute of marriage is very important. We must be faithful to each other. So the rule is she can only sleep with other men when they're taller than I am, and only on Wednesdays. I mean, it's just a ridiculous comment. Like he said, "Oh yeah, well, it's a very clear relationship. All he can do is race for them." It's like, fucking hell. And then he expands on the comments by saying, "Well, he's not allowed to do sponsor work for them, and he can't do promotional work." And it's like, well, yeah, but that's like that's the ancillary stuff. That's the ancillary stuff, Zach. I think there's a very real possibility if the McLaren Renault situation doesn't work out particularly well. There's a very real possibility that he'll come out of this very clearly marketed as a Toyota World Endurance driver.
Exactly.
Exactly. And what's particularly interesting is that Toyota have a very genuine pop at the World Championship this year because Porsche have withdrawn.
Yeah.
In fact, aren't they unchallenged in LMP1?
Ooh, now that I don't know because I'm not a massive follower of it, but I'm going to be taking a bit more of an interest now. Because quite a few different drivers are there. What I find really, really interesting is didn't a certain Anthony Davidson have to move way for Fernando to get in the seat?
Yeah, he got dropped for Fernando, and you must think he'd be pretty freaking annoyed if this was a temporary arrangement, but. Honestly, it has none of the hallmarks of a temporary arrangement.
None at all.
And McLaren are looking more and more like, and again, this is a word I hate to use because of the connotations it's picked up recently and the way it's overused. But they are starting to look like the cuckolded husband a bit, because it's like, oh, Fernando Alonso is our premier driver. Where is he this weekend? It's the Monaco Grand Prix. Oh, he's driving IndyCar, but he still loves me.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, where is he this weekend? Oh, he's at Daytona. Oh, where is he for the majority of this season? Oh, he's just driving for Toyota in World Endurance. It ain't no biggie. We've got an open relationship. It's cool. I don't want to fence him in. Like, no, just no, really. I don't think Nando's in it in the long run.
No, he's not. He's not. And because this is now a full season thing, for me, this is his step out to basically, if this goes all right, I'm off. Because he needs to feather his cap elsewhere and work out where he does and doesn't want to race in the future. And I think what it does show, actually, is that McLaren is actually probably his backup option as opposed to anything else.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? This is the risk that McLaren have been running for a long time. Not just by becoming a customer team, but being a customer team kind of precludes you from great success, and you need great success to attract sponsors, and you need the sponsors and the great success to attract great drivers.
Yep.
And it's clear that McLaren is not attractive to Fernando or any other great driver, and that is a tragedy and no mistake.
Yeah.
But I mean, the fact is, he now has one foot into a potentially championship-winning position, at a very prestigious, very watchable, and very successful alternative series.
Which is on the
that
up.
is- yeah, it's on the up and up, and it offers phenomenal racing. And you know what it doesn't clash with very often?
What's that?
Formula E.
Interesting. Hasn't
so
he gone on
I-
record to say that he doesn't want to go there, though?
I think that's very much that's the feeling that he'll have right now. I think that will begin to change. Although maybe he'll be too old by the time his mind changes. I mean, honestly, I don't think it's the formula that would put him off. You hear him talk about this in the documentary, actually.
Okay.
Where he's using other sports as an analogy, but basically he says, if someone invites me to play another sport and I don't feel I'm good enough, I will delay accepting the invitation until I've had time to practice and get good, because if I can't win, then I'm not interested.
Okay.
Which I thought was a very interesting thing to say, given that he's at a team that cannot win.
Yeah.
And he's now manoeuvred himself into a part-time job with a team that definitely can. And I think what's unattractive to him about Formula E is what makes it attractive to fans right now, which is you genuinely have no idea weekend to weekend who's going to win.
Yeah.
Just none. And there have been 3 different champions in the 3 preceding seasons. No team seems capable of producing a hegemonic dominance of the formula. And they seem to be striking a very healthy balance between being a constructor and having standardised parts. Where the gains from being a constructor are there, but they're very incremental. And they can be nullified by stuff like fan boost.
Yeah.
I mean, I hated fan boost at the start, but now I'm becoming a big fan of it, because what tends to happen is, rather than a Max Verstappen character who's already doing well getting the fan boost all the time, it's actually quite variable who gets it, and usually, particularly the mid-race ones, they're definitely used organically to improve the show. Because the fans see a battle where one guy's perhaps at a bit of a disadvantage during the race, and they'll vote to boost him, and that power difference actually makes quite a noticeable difference. I think Formula E is doing a hell of a lot right, actually.
I do like what Formula E does as a general platform. The jury is still very much out for me on fan boost. I'd much rather see a race that is a more leveler playing field and less of a popularity contest. It makes me also laugh at the way how IndyCar has started to chuck all of its drivers into reality TV shows. Alexander Rossi's busy doing one at the moment where he tours around Europe. And I was watching some of the stuff that was going on with it, some of the promos. And I don't know, please forgive us, any Americans that are watching, but can we just say that Croatia and Czech Republic are not third world countries? Because they were talking it was hilarious. They're going, oh yeah, well, we grew up racing in Europe, and sometimes, you're in the Czech Republic, and I'm thinking, right, they're at Brno. And they're talking about it, and they're going, sometimes you have to cook your own dinner, and the people are like, oh my God, you have to cook your own dinner. There's no tater tots. It was hilarious, because I was just like, is that really what America thinks Europe's like? Because the woman who was interviewing was like, God, what's it like with all the poverty there? That was the genuine question. I was thinking, I don't know quite what Trumpian line you're all thinking you're pressing, but it's hilarious. And apparently, because I've forgotten the name of that specific thing, but it's essentially Rossi and another driver going around Europe on a little backpacking session, but it's tied up with their racing. What's his name? Connor Daly, that's the other driver. And Ari Lundike Jr. Is now apparently the Bachelor on The Bachelor. So if anyone's got any comments on where you would like to see a Formula One driver on a reality TV show, please do drop it in the comments below. And if you've got any examples of things you'd like to see, Taco Friend, I'd love to hear them. I'd like to see Lewis Hamilton on X Factor, just to wipe off his career before it begins.
I still stand by from last season the reality TV show that I pitched, which was Eddie Irvine, Flavio Briatore, and Bernie Eccleston in a flat share in Monaco. I would watch that 24 hours a day. That would be opiate Big Brother to me. Like Eddie Irvine and the Flav out on the town. I just yes please. Maybe adding Giancarlo Fisichella actually as an ancillary character. Just all those guys out on the pole. I'd watch the hell out of that.
That'd be great.
But segueing back onto Alonso and everything else. Lando Norris has stepped forward, and I mean he said it in a different way, but basically he looked into the camera and said, "Fernando, retire." Like I was quite surprised by how brazen he was. Like, not that he said anything that was like super offensive or disrespectful or anything, because he really didn't. It's just you could tell that it wasn't a McLaren curated comment that he was making. Because
no, I'd imagine not with that message.
Because he wasn't speaking in a McLaren capacity, right? He was speaking. He was speaking independently, and
Team Lando.
He sort of was quite forceful in saying, "I want to be in Formula One. I want to be in Formula One today. I want to be in Formula One with McLaren. I want to be in Formula One with McLaren today. And the only thing stopping me is Fernando Alonso." And he says, like, my career hinges on what Fernando decides to do. And there was an undertone to the comment that was basically saying, look, you're driving for McLaren, which may not be winning, but it is one of the most prestigious names in Formula One. And you're part-timing with a potentially World Championship winning WEC outfit. And it's like, shit or get off the pot, Fernando, because I'm raring to go.
Yeah.
And I think I'd love to see, actually... I'm reluctant to say I want Nando to step aside, but given that he does have a foot in the door with a team elsewhere that makes immense sense as a logical progression for him and a chance to really solidify his legend that he's not going to get in the career remaining to him at McLaren, I would absolutely love to see him step aside for Lando Norris. I'd like to see a Lando-Nando switcheroo.
You beat me to it. I was waiting for you to finish. I was going to say it's going to be a Nando for Lando. That does sound like some kind of Italian pudding that you
It's
would
a shame
have.
they couldn't be teammates, because that would have sounded like a children's TV show.
Exactly.
I could imagine
Lando,
it to the Bodger and Badger
Lando.
theme tune.
Yeah, exactly. What's the
Everybody
car
knows
doing
Nando
today,
loves
Lando?
mashed potatoes. Huh?
What's the car doing today, Lando? It's exploding.
Shit.
Yeah. 100%, 105%, 107% rule. Well done, kids. No.
GP2 engine.
Boo.
Oh dear, Nando's not happy.
Join us next week for Tuned, when one gets pushed out the aeroplane for the other.
But what I do think,
shit.
though, is that I don't think Stoffel can compete with Lando Norris.
Really?
Yeah, really. I don't. I think Nando, like, he didn't have a stellar first season. He just didn't. But that's okay, because he held his own enough against Fernando for it to not be, totally mockable. I think this season he really has to make gains against Fernando. And I think because Fernando's lifespan is considered to be measured in races rather than seasons at this point, I think he's got a little bit of breathing room that wouldn't otherwise be afforded to him. And I think he's still coasting a little bit on his junior Formula record, which is stellar. And it's not that I don't think he's a great driver, I just don't think he's on the same level as Norris. Because if you look at what Norris was able to do at Daytona, like at night, in the wet, on the wrong tyres for that car because they had to run Continentals in the race, but they'd been testing the car on Dunlops, which seemed to suit it much better. If you look at how much time he gained on his first attempt, it's insane. I mean, that's just irrepressible natural talent, the kind Max Verstappen has.
Yeah.
I don't think Stoffel quite has that. And I think he'd be safe for a few seasons, but I think eventually he's going to suffer for that differential. I won by just over half a second.
Well done, you.
That was cozier than I anticipated.
Well done, you.
Let me find you.
I'm playing the blocker game because I had a spin at the Lesmos on the second last lap and basically rammed into Perez to get back my sixth. We done it though. Sixth. Well done, well done. I tell you what, I think that puts us probably level pegging on points, you know.
Yeah, you should close the gap nicely.
Well done, sir.
Thank you. It was a good race.
Whoop,
It was
whoop,
good. I mean, considering that I didn't fix my wing either.
No, you had to work for that.
It's funny though, because I've been practicing before we went live, and I couldn't get into a frame of mind where I was just zoned in and
No.
just in the rhythm.
We both
But
said
here
we was
it
going to be
seemed to
shit,
happen.
didn't we?
Yeah. But here
Well
it just
done.
sort of happened. I found my
Ooh.
pace.
Oh, I just had a frame of Gunter Steiner and he looks like someone shat on a shark.
He does look a bit sharky, doesn't he?
Nice.
So yeah, we don't have much time, and I want to hit you with the Twitter questions really quick.
Yeah.
But before we do, final word. Would you want to see, and would you expect Fernando to step aside after this season and Lando to step up?
If there is no progression for McLaren beyond, if they're not in the top 4 constructors, Nando will step aside. I don't know if I'd like to or not like to see it, though. I don't know. I feel like I'd like to have them both on the grid, please.
Yeah, it kind of feels like we've been robbed of some of the best Alonso years just because he's been in shit cars. And
Yeah.
I don't know what more he could have done to put himself in good cars, to be honest.
No. He's just been. He's got the luck of anyone that isn't Irish, essentially. So yeah, shame.
'Cause it seems to be like if he'd been obvious target for any of the big teams that were doing well, but they seem to have drivers that were good enough embedded in them.
Yeah.
That probably didn't want to compete against him, and it's a tragedy because there's, him leaving the sport, a 2-time world champion, is just unacceptable.
Yeah.
Quick word on points. We are very, very close. I have
You are
leapfrogged you by
ahead.
a mere 3 points, but
Woo, woo, woo.
the harsh cheeks are back together.
They are. We've squeezed out a Bottas.
We've squeezed the Bottas, and we are pretty solidly in third.
We
in
are.
the constructors.
Looking juicy.
I'm not sure we could close the gap to Mercedes, but if it carries on like this, we should get a bit closer to them because we're both outscoring Bottas.
Yeah.
Right, let me hit you with some Twitter questions. I got like a handful of Twitter questions. I'm trying to remember everyone's names and what the questions were. They
Okay.
were podcast related rather than sport related.
Cool.
I'll go with the first one I remember very well. Jacob Meyer was asking, all the years you've been doing this, which is the best and worst cars you've driven season on season?
Ooh. Force Failure was probably my favourite car. Favourite season for fun though, Caterham Kings, alongside this one.
Yeah, definitely. I'd agree. Like this one and Caterham Kings are tied in terms of the fun I've had on track and hosting the podcast. I would say best car I've driven. It's between this one and the Force India, and I don't know if it's just down to the game running smoother on here. That makes me think the Haas has actually been more enjoyable to drive.
Yeah.
But I think that the Force India was more. It felt more under control. Worst car for me, the McLaren,
Yeah, that car was a
because
dog.
I felt every I put the Caterham above it really. I mean, the Caterham was a bit of a dog, but the McLaren 2015 McLaren was heavy. It
Yeah,
was really heavy, and it was the worst car in the game, even against the Manor, statistically speaking.
yeah.
So yeah, we'll go with that. Second question was any chance of us coming full circle and going back to Sauber where it all began next season? Now they've got Alfa Romeo branding, and we're all excited about it.
Don't make me
don't
get
know.
Yeah, we don't know, but I am getting a little bit of excited at the thought of that.
And the third question, and I'm sorry I forget who it came from, was asking if, given that we weren't able to put together the non-denominational holiday special, given that we're so passionate about particularly 90s Formula One, and the game has classic cars, will we consider doing a retro special where we do maybe a full-length retro race and we talk about our favourite races from history?
Ooh, that sounds like a
And
good
that actually really excited me, because
Yeah.
I immediately started thinking about the best Grand Prix I've seen and how well I actually remember them, that it could be quite good to reminisce a little.
Yeah,
And
bring that sepia in, bitches.
yeah, so I'm definitely open to that. We'll
Yeah.
if we decide to do it, and when we find a place to do it, we'll definitely post something on Twitter about it. I mean, the interesting thing is that we have been really good with our schedule this year, and this is only the second time in all these years that we've got this far into a season.
I know.
But we are actually due to finish this season in May, I believe, which is obviously like peak Formula One season. The new game doesn't drop till September, October time usually. That gives us a few months of a break, so we'll have to find something to do in the meantime. I'm sure we'll take a short break at some point for vacations and whatnot, but I'm sure we can squeeze some specials in there to bridge the gap, because that'll be when all the good F1 news is around as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, I have a quick announcement to make. Hopefully this works for you, Simon. The next episode, I am actually I'm out of town for work, and I will not be back until the Sunday. So hopefully, if that works for you, it will be a Sunday episode next time.
Yeah, works for me.
Lovely. So same time, but on a Sunday. Other than that, great episode. Good to have everyone with us. Good to be able to talk about the searing hot issues of the day.
Yeah.
Particularly about McLaren. And I've had a very enjoyable Grand Prix.
Yes, and congrats for the win. Everyone that's watched, go and have yourselves a drink, be that a Red Bull Cranberry or not. We did have some viewers watching live, but everyone was suspiciously quiet. So I think they were just judging us or enjoying the fact that I was crashing into Sergio Perez. So yeah. Cheers, everyone. Have a wonderful week. And as Espen says, back 2 weeks' time, but on Sunday, 4 p.m. UK time. Have a good one. Bye.
Cheerio.
Pip, pip.